Welcome, my friend, to This Leader, where we talk about the transformational, high-impact secrets and strategies that help you become the best version of your leadership self. I'm Claire Laughlin, and I'm your host, and I am so glad you're here. This week, we've got a very special episode. This is sort of an encore presentation, in a sense. It's an encore guest appearance, let's say, from my guest, Maryse Postlewaite. And Maryse and I have known each other for a very long time. She's what I'm calling the conflict expert because she has so much experience. She's got over 45 years of experience as an international certified Montessori educator. And she has combined that with so many different experiences. She has trained with the Children's Creative Response to Conflict program. She's trained with positive discipline. She's a Kid Power board member and has trained in Kid Power methodologies. She's had training in mindfulness and cultivating authentic communication. Really, she's had many, many different kinds of approaches to conflict, lots of training there. And I think what you will hear is something I love about talking to Maryse. You will hear the humanness that she brings to every interaction. Honestly, she is just particularly good at helping people come into conflict situations with lots of heart and openness. And I'm sure you're going to hear that in our episode. So we are going to call this one Ask the Conflict Expert. And we've got a couple of questions from audience members, things that people have sent me questions about. And I am going to share these with Maryse and let's see what she has to say. Let's get to it. Welcome, Maryse. So nice to see you.
Claire, the same. I'm so excited about today's session to just dive a little deeper into conflict resolution, right?
I am too. I mean, I can't tell you how conflict is so sticky for people. And we've gotten so many questions about conflict that I am so excited for this. This is going to be a unique episode because I'm calling this Ask the Conflict Expert because I want you to share your expertise. Last time we were together, we talked about how to prepare for conflict and some tips and tricks and things like that. Okay. We're going to go into application. We're going to talk about if this is your situation, if that is your situation. And I just love that, my community of people send questions. And so I thought, hey, what a great opportunity. I don't have to answer all these questions. I can get Maryse to answer these questions. And so I don't know if I shared this with you, but I did my master's thesis on conflict resolution.
I'd love to read it, actually. I'm still learning, so you might have some things in there.
No, I was making the argument that we need to teach interpersonal communication skills in college level argumentation and debate courses because I thought, man, we go in with this argumentative mindset, this defensive kind of or offensive.
We want to win.
We want to win.
Right. Or we want to say, no, you're not reading me right. This is how I'm feeling and that kind of thing. Yeah, we want to win in the end. Yeah.
And while I love, love, love the idea of teaching people the principles of debate and like how to evaluate arguments and all that stuff, I think that is all solid, great stuff. I just wanted one little extra thing in there. And that was, how do we show up in ways that can build trust,
And you're the trust expert, I'd say.
Today, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, things that come up all the time. I see this all the time. I see these kinds of things. People ask me these questions. So we are going to put you on the spot in a nice way. And I'm going to see if you can share some of your wisdom with us, okay?
Thanks, Claire. And I have to preface with, I have learned, and now some of these things are much more natural for me because of the practice. And so thank you for, labeling expert. I see you as a trust expert. When you just really pay attention, much more attention to how you're proceeding with your relationships and your communication and all of that. So I've learned through my mistakes.
Right.
Right. And I just made one recently with a neighbor who said, I saw that this happened. And so I said, well, let's talk directly because I heard it through another person, right? Which we'll dive into the importance and how helpful it is to speak directly with people.
Absolutely.
So go ahead, dive in if you're ready.
I just want to pull one last thing out of that before I jump in with questions. And that is like what you just said. You've paid attention.
hmm
You've learned some frameworks and principles. You've applied those. Probably you've experimented all along the way, right? You like sort of, this works. Oh, this doesn't work so well. This works for me.
Right, works for me because we have to consider our backgrounds, our history, and what we grew up with. And then if we are looking to proceed differently than what we were raised with, it takes even more effort, right?
Yeah. All right, let's jump in here. I got a question for you. A colleague has started leaving you off email threads and meeting invites. This is what I would call a covert kind of conflict. It's not overt yet, but you notice something. So a colleague has started leaving you off email threads and meeting invites that you should clearly be a part of. Okay. Nothing is said outright. It just quietly keeps happening. And so that's one part of the conflict itself. And then another part that we see a lot is that instead of going and just asking them and saying, hey, is there a reason? Is this an oversight? What is this? What's happening? Instead of asking them directly, you might find yourself mentioning this to other coworkers, speaking around the issue, half joking, maybe hoping someone else will say something or notice or someone will intervene. So let's talk about that situation. What is going on there?
Sure. So, Claire, I have a question in that regard. Who am I? Am I a person do I go directly to people or am I shy? I want to kind of maybe because we have people listening who come from different places, right? And I could help maybe give me one of them in this scenario. Who am I in that way?
Okay, I'm going to just spitball this here. I'm going to say you are a person early in their career. You are working to develop your confidence in speaking up in situations like this. So maybe your comfort level is a little bit let's say your comfort is a little on the low side in terms of whether you should speak up and how you should speak up. But let's say that the relationship is more of a peer to peer. This isn't direct with your manager or supervisor. This is more of a lateral relationship. And you asked about background, and I love that because I do think we have to consider that in all cases. Are you comfortable or not? But I guess what I would encourage people to do in a professional setting is look for ways to develop your comfort,
Yes,
even if your background would tell you otherwise.
that's wonderful. Great. You've tagged into a bunch of different things, so help keep me on track here. So, this piece about going to a colleague and trying to mention it in this way, oh, maybe I can find out more from somebody else. I know this is common.
Yeah.
And part of it is so sometimes it's venting, right? And you're going and you're just you're frustrated and that. And sometimes you're wanting to get advice or hear people out. So I really encourage people to find somebody in their lives. Maybe I mentioned it's in the first podcast, someone in your life that can be what I have in my life, a phone buddy, Sarah. And Sarah and I just talked yesterday. We met each other through a course on communication. And so I would say to Sarah, okay, imagine you're Tom, my husband. And I'm wanting to approach Tom with this particular situation. And Tom is this kind of person in that, just like we talked about here.
Yeah.
And then I try something out, and then Sarah would let me know, yeah, okay, I think you got that. Or, that part was a little bit showing your defensiveness or whatever. And so practice with somebody else who's not related to the situation. The first thing is really to, even though you might not be comfortable, is to find that place where you can be going to the person directly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say something like, oh, I didn't get that notice on the meeting this afternoon. Did you? And that kind of thing. I mean, it's tricky. You don't want to lead with manipulation. So find somebody else in a different department that you can talk to. Somebody who doesn't know the situation, doesn't know the people. I would really highly recommend that because it complicates things.
Yeah.
And then my other piece is always leading with assuming the best.
Yeah.
So have we ruled out that there's a misunderstanding, that they're or assuming that you're being left out because your voice is not valued? And we can go to those places, especially if confidence level's not there, you're new to the job, you're not sure where the hierarchy of things are.
Yeah.
Then I really value, and this takes practice, sorry to say, but it takes practice, is using a bridge, which means giving a compliment
Okay.
of what you like about the person who's leaving you out of these emails, right? And then using an I statement. And I've approached I statements slightly differently than what I've seen, when you look up I statements or however traditionally, and then make a request.
Okay.
So for this kind of thing, maybe it has a pattern of I feel, and you say what emotion,
Yeah.
when and it's always I. Because if you say you,
Yeah.
you know, I feel interrupted because I. So in this case, you might say that I've learned from others about a meeting and you've been a really good communicator, Claire. And I feel valued when I'm approached directly because I prefer not to get other people involved and complicate things. Could you check your email threads and be sure that I'm included if I'm meant to be?
Yeah.
It seems like I'm not getting emails. So I don't know if you hear in my language, I put a lot of maybes, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I learned this from personal experience because I used to lead with statements that had no wiggle room. And so perhaps I'm being left out of these emails. I'm not sure. It seems like,
Yeah.
because then we aren't saying, I'm being left out of emails. Well, emails are tricky. Text messages are tricky. I mean, how often we are in multiple threads.
Right. That's more of an accusation than a genuine, curious, like, wait, I need to understand what's going on here. This is like, I already figured it out, and I'm now going to accuse you of leaving me out.
Exactly. And when we come from that, it comes from a place of insecurity, usually, if we're leading that way. And that's also the other piece, tone, right? Oh my gosh. I've had to practice on my tone so much because I grew up with this tone of assertiveness and like sure that I was right.
Yeah.
And yet that's not inviting at all. So is with that piece is if you lead though with a tone of insecurity, like it seems that I know I'm new to the job here and hedging, that's going to invite also. So also set yourself up for the situation so that it's successful.
Yeah.
So you have the situation, you want to talk to your colleague about it, and you've practiced perhaps, hopefully you've had a chance to do this and make sure that it's a setting that works for you. So you're doing it first thing in the morning or a setting for the other person too. Like not right before lunch, maybe when people are hungry, right? Where are you going to have this conversation? Is it going to be a place where you're going to be interrupted, right? So best not to have a place where you're going to be interrupted so that you can have that peace. And gosh, the other piece that you talk about so much, which is so important, is trust. So if this is a new relationship, maybe don't approach this situation until you build some rapport. And that rapport can just be like, oh, how was your weekend? And start with that. And then find out more about the person so that you might have a sense of how best to lead with this person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me just feed back a few of the tips and some of the things that you said there that I think are really sort of foundational that we should always be considering. One is assuming the best. And, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Becky Kennedy. Do you know about Dr. Becky Kennedy?
I think I want to learn.
She's amazing. She's actually like a parenting expert. Anyway, this belongs to her, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yes.
I learned from her language this MGI, most generous interpretation. Most generous interpretation, which is whatever's happening, we can come up with an ungenerous interpretation. This person is leaving me off these emails. This conversation isn't going to go well. now I have to do this and that. We can put ourselves in that one down position and that kind of prepare ourselves for the worst. And then our brains get activated in a certain way. And then we want to kind of go in and we have a different kind of tone and energy in the interaction versus an MGI, most generous interpretation, which is, well, I'd say the most generous interpretation is it was an oversight. It was a simple oversight, and I just need to go talk about it. So then I think that's really important because it primes you as the person who's going to address this, in the right way, in the best possible way for the best possible outcome. And I think I always want to draw people's attention back to think about the outcome that you actually want.
Absolutely.
Do you want to resolve the problem or do you want to be right or to catch someone in the act or these are human things. I've been in those places. I just need to be right. When I look back, I go, oh yeah, that was me just totally wanting to be right, or there I was, you know, subtly wanting to catch someone in the act of leaving me out or this.
Yeah, it is human. Yeah.
There we are. We're just humans. But to check yourself, assume the best. Another thing you said that I want to draw out here is venting versus solving. So you said you call Sarah, your trusted friend, to talk through this stuff. And I want to pull that forward because what I see a lot is the gossip or the rumor mill that happens because what we do is instead of going to a trusted friend to look for a solution, we go to the water cooler to tell people about how wronged we were or what what I mean? Like the intent and the process of it all is more about, "Oh, guess what happened to me? And there she did that again and blah, blah, blah." We can go with the wrong kind of intention entirely instead of really coming to say, "I'm not here to vent. I'm not here to gossip. I'm not here to spread a rumor. I'm picking you because I know you are gonna help me be my best self."
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And here's another little piece before you go on to whatever other treasures you picked out. Sometimes when we find somebody to vent with and we're just venting, we don't go back to the other person because we have released that feeling that we've had. And so we feel like it's solved.
Okay.
Like the body, it's solved for us because we spoke about it and we let it out.
Well, I don't think that's a bad thing if you go to a trusted friend. Like if you go and you go, "You know what? This actually isn't that big of a deal. I feel complete now. I feel resolved. I don't need to
Thank you for that.
I've chosen now. I've made a choice and I don't need to go and bring this up with the person." I'm all for that if that's the case.
That's really a great revision because, yes, it can be that, oh, you talk it out and you realize, yeah, it's not as big of a deal, or I have a better way to approach it, or that kind of thing. Yeah, that's for sure. I did mention this to somebody just recently. Somebody wanted to share with me something that they were upset with my husband.
Okay.
And so we're in the same community. And I've had lots of practice because Tom and I co taught for many years. And then we worked at the same school.
Yeah.
And people would say, "Oh, would you let Tom know?" Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And at first, there would be times where I would forget to tell him. And so over time, we both had this experience. We realized we wanted to ask the person to be direct. And it wasn't like they're sharing a complaint or anything like this, but it was just passing on a message that the meeting time has changed or something like that. Right. Really simple. So in order for Tom and I not to have these kinds of conflicts. Like, you didn't tell me this message. We practiced and we said, "Oh, I like that you're including me. However, I think it'd be best if you talk with him because sometimes I've forgotten the message," or something like that. Right. So here I have a person coming to me and we're a shared community and she wants to tell me that she's really upset with my husband. And I said, "So I hear you and I'm going to ask you." I paused right away. Like for her, I requested a pause. "I'm going to ask you that you speak with him directly."
Yeah.
And because the importance of that, yes. And I said, "And sometimes, not always, but sometimes when you share something with somebody and you kind of process it and all, you might think it's resolved, and really it isn't. And so that's why I really want you. And that person at that time said, yeah, you're right about that.
That's great.
Yeah. I also like, Claire, that you point out that sometimes the venting, or obviously finding the solution can be beneficial, but sometimes the venting, you realize it's not that big of a deal. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the other thing I was just going to say was about what you mentioned about manipulation. Like when we go in to these conversations and we say something like, I realize this may, or, okay, wait, you said something that I gotta go back to. You said in the little role play there, you said, if I'm meant to be included, I hope you'll, or please include me or something like that.
Right. Right.
Kind of like that. But on the other hand, my curiosity is taking me to this place of, and then the next meeting comes and you're left off again. And now a new question is coming up, which is, huh, so am I meant to be left off these things? So let me get clarity on that, right? And so that doesn't feel manipulative to me, but it does point me to a place of get clear on what it is that you want to know, assuming that this is the last conversation you want to have about this. And I don't mean it will be the last conversation, but don't go in and open a new can of worms that then you could be disappointed again.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Go in and you might say instead, like, I noticed I was left off this email thread. I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this was just a simple oversight.
Yeah.
Unless something has changed. Am I no longer supposed to be part of this? I mean, this is a conversation. This isn't just a one way, but like, am I no longer supposed to be part of this project? I haven't heard anything about that.
Right.
If that's the case, who should I talk to?
Right. You got it.
Yeah. So, sort of that direct line through like, here's the issue I'm having, and here's the resolution that I would hope for clarity. I would hope for some clarity.
I was just working with someone else who talked about the importance of clarity, clarity with ourselves.
Yes.
And the question was, it's one I'm still thinking about. If we're not clear with ourselves, how can we lead with others with clarity? And that's part of what I've learned through this work is that I thought I was clear. And then while I'm trying to resolve the problem, I'm getting to the deeper root of the problem
Right.
of having been left out of, friends who had a birthday party and you weren't included, right? Or whatever, right? And then how that went wrong. And then how maybe I don't want to approach this because it brings up those same feelings.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, that's why conflict resolution is really exciting for me when it can be successful when you have the tools, right? Otherwise, we're dealing with these feelings that get brought up that we didn't even realize were there.
Yeah.
I love your most generous interpretation. By the way, may I collect that?
Well, yes, that belongs to Dr. Becky, but yes.
Okay. Well, and I will give kudos to Dr. Becky because that's been my work. So if we're leading with that most generous interpretation for ourselves, and then be able to deal with the things that, it brings up. And then we get to be, I feel like I can lead with more authenticity and I can be in a vulnerable place more easily. And then the connections. That's what it's all about, right?
I love that. Yes, absolutely. Okay. I'm going to give you another one. Let's go on to a different question here. So we kind of did this peer-to-peer one. So let's do one where I've got another one here about your manager, your boss, right, makes a decision without soliciting your input.
Okay.
Now, does a boss have a right to make a decision without soliciting your input? Yes, they do. Okay. But you, as the employee and as the person who's probably going to need to execute this decision, let's say, can see that this is headed for failure.
Okay.
And beyond that, you've had experiences in the past where you go try to bring this up and your manager kind of brushes it off.
Okay. That's good background. Yeah.
So now you're getting yourself into a place where you're feeling like you're set up for failure because you can see the problems before you even start, but you're not being asked and you're actually not even being listened to when you do try to bring it up. So is that a conflict? And how do we handle that?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And I would imagine if it's repeated continuously and you're not in a position to moving up or having a lateral change in your departments or, and you're having to deal with this boss continuously, there may be the thought of what is this relationship? How much do I want to invest in it? And do I want to proceed forward? So that would be the underlying question because it will help to inform how you approach. So if you feel like I've got something in my back pocket, I'm kind of going to be out of here anyways, kind of thing.
Okay.
That could be a factor, right? Or I'm going to go with in this situation, Claire, that you're proposing. No, this is you're dedicated to this. You really want to be able to go forward. You want to stay with this position, or the commute is convenient. And there's all these perks, or whatever reason you're keeping this job and you have this boss that you have to deal with, right? So I would always, in whatever situation, you want to check out the policies and procedures of your organization.
Okay.
Is there a clear written code of communication and civility?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that it's very like, this is what you do. You go to HR, you go to the boss, whatever it is, because you want to follow the protocols
Right.
because you don't want to be caught with, oh, well, you didn't follow the protocols, right? Then with your boss, have to lead, as difficult as it might be, that they are making this decision based on maybe some factors that you're not aware of, and that this is the best situation considering things that you may not ever be included in,
Okay.
right? So if you lead with that and you're looking to approach your boss, your manager, always do so outside of the situation, not in the middle of it. Like here, he's just handed you another decision that you don't want to follow through with because you're seeing it's a path to failure
Right.
because you're dealing with all your own emotions. So outside of a situation, this is true for all conflicts, whether they're peer to peer or with a colleague, a friend, family, even family, right? So outside of the situation is to be able to approach and say, perhaps, well, I always like to lead with a personal possible example of where I had a misunderstanding
Mm-hmm.
to say, so I'm hearing that, or I'm receiving some decisions and some follow through that you'd like me to do. And I've been in situations that sometimes it wasn't so clear. And then I ended up not going the right way with what was expected of me. And I have some ideas and some considerations with this decision. Would you be open about talking about it?
Mm-hmm.
Always asking questions to include the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Because before proceeding forward, and I've made this mistake, I'm assuming that they want to work with me.
Right.
And if they don't want to work with you, you need to know that up front.
That's good information.
So there are a lot of ways to present that. Again, you're outside the situation. You've been handed a task to finish by the end of the week. You see that because of other things that are in place, this won't work.
Right.
So I have some ideas about this piece that you're asking me to follow through with. Do you want to hear about them?
Right.
And then if it's no, I've made this decision, you've got to accept that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. And then I think through time, again, leading with maybe it's totally unrelated to a work situation and you're trying to develop rapport and you're asking a question that might be, I'm in a position where in my family, I have my sister-in-law who's asking me for advice about things, and it's a situation I'm not familiar with. Have you ever been in that situation? And so they're not thinking that it's related to a decision that you don't want to follow through with.
Yeah.
Now, some people might say that's manipulative. I don't think it is. It's learning about the other person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So you're taking it upon yourself to do the job of establishing the rapport and learning more about your manager.
Hmm.
And though in so many situations we may say that it's the manager's job to make sure that they're inviting their team members into the conversation, et cetera, I always would say it's the human job. And if the other person isn't doing it and it's bothersome to you, then consider stepping up because it is, in the end, your life and your time. So if you're going to continue doing this job, it behooves you to find ways forward that help make your days more enjoyable, right? Whether it's the other person's job or role or not,
Hmm.
you might want to consider the cost you're paying for not taking that on yourself.
We've talked about that cost, right? You go home and you're, maybe not sleeping as well. And yeah, it's the cost to you. So that's why I asked, like at the beginning, what's your investment in this relationship?
Yes, important to know.
Yeah. And also, I like that you bring up the point that we kind of are in a position that at work, there's the boss, the manager, and they are right. And I have to follow what they're saying. And so if we can invite, and I also like leading with, not that it's hesitation, but it's an invitation for space to say something as you initiate a conversation. Been thinking about this situation, Claire, and I'm not sure how to approach it, though I know it's important to be approached.
Mhm.
And could you bear with me? I might be fumbling through. And I think this could be beneficial to us to unpack something that's been going on.
Right,
Are you open to having this conversation? Is this a good time?
right.
Asking if it's a good time is a really important thing because you can always pin this and then bring it up the next day when everybody's feeling better and that kind of thing, right?
Right. You know what I love about talking to you, Maryse? I just love how generous you are with, thinking through, like, how people are gonna respond to all these things. I think I've been in too many conflict situations in organizational life because I feel like it could be very common for a manager to say something like, "Yeah, now's not a good time," and not make a new time. This kind we don't have to talk about all that, but this is why I have dedicated my whole life to helping people develop their their heartfelt leadership skills, because I want everybody who is in a position of leading others to understand the context and the culture that they're creating and the impact that they're creating for the people who come to work for them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're a lead, a supervisor, a manager, a director, a CEO, a VP, it doesn't make any difference. And the truth is, whether you have a title or not, we all impact the people around us.
Absolutely.
And I just think we have to be thinking about being generous in spirit to those around us and creating connection and relationship because at the end of the day, that is what matters most, I think. I mean, it's the vehicle for us getting all the other things that we think we need in business, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you touch upon the importance, and we have many resources now on the neuroscience and how our nervous systems are in touch with one another's
Mm.
nervous systems.
Emotional contagion. I hear you.
Exactly. And so we want to make our world a better place. And we can. We can by leading with this generosity.
Right.
So thank you. That was a very rich compliment. I took it all in
Good.
because the world around us, the chaos that's going on because of the political conversations or divisiveness and all of that, we all have to manage that in our way.
Right.
And for me, it's a diet, very little. It's not news anymore. I'm sorry, but you know, things aren't so new. And to know at the end of the day, when you have that conversation with a stranger,
Mhm.
your hearts connect, like you say, that heartfelt connection. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Yes, the promotions and yes, the kudos at work and all of that. And it's ego driven. And in the end, I think we all value from one another our authenticity, our vulnerability, and our patience with ourselves, with one another. And we get to choose who we connect with outside of our work,
Totally. Totally.
right?
Yeah.
And so in our work, we can lead with that generosity. And then before you know it, you're the person that the boss is coming to you and saying, say, Claire, you came up with this thing that was really fun that we did at the beginning of our meeting. Like we had this, if you really knew me, you would know that kind of thing, or whatever those exercises that I've shared the last time. And let's do another one. Do you have another one up your sleeve? Right. And then people start coming to you. So always hold your head high in these very difficult situations.
I like that. So you've shared a lot of really good principles here that I think we can follow in really any kind of overt or covert conflict that people, encounter. I think in some ways, I actually think that more overt conflict, like I know I'm sitting across from you and I know we have different viewpoints and we are here debating and maybe it's uncomfortable and all that, but in some ways, I think that overt conflict, people talk about that all the time and there's ways to get through that and all this. I think the covert conflict is the conflict that is not yet expressed or the conflict that's expressed indirectly or the conflict that we carry around in ourselves. It's inner conflict because we haven't ever brought it up with another person and all. I mean, I think those are so interesting and so much a part of the conflict landscape that we need to get familiar with, you know? So, what I hear you saying is these principles under the surface of like, okay, know yourself, think about it. Think about yourself and the impact to you. Think about the outcome that you really want. Get yourself in a good place to do it. Rehearse, practice, get support, things like that. Find a good time and place to do it, and then go in with an open heart, a most generous interpretation, and a willingness to be provisional is what I would say. I just did a podcast about this, but to be provisional, to not be so certain, like this is what's happening, this is what I need, but to go in with a problem-solving attitude and a forward orientation. How will we move forward in the best way together? Something like that. That's all my interpretation of what you just said.
Spot on, Claire. Spot on. Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, when you say there are things that are like underneath and they're not being addressed, how about the situation? And I think this might happen more in family or in households where you're sharing a home with a partner, that kind of thing. And you think the problem's resolved.
Mm,
And it isn't because the underlying roots have not been resolved. And so I know we talked about like the unmet needs,
yeah.
right? And so that's lifelong. I mean, Tom and I have been together over 40, I think this year is 45 years of marriage, 48 of having met each other, right? And still, still we have this, we get into whatever habits and that. So to know that if it comes up again, that situation, it's giving us an opportunity to dig in a little bit more and maybe learn a little bit more about ourselves, our relationship. And that's why, like for me, we both, my husband and I have both vested interest in continuing the relationship. Therefore, we're willing to work at it.
Oh, cannot say enough about that.
Yeah. And so that's why in a work situation, I think that can be a thought. Like if you want to proceed with this boss who constantly says no, right? And you keep on going because this is who you are. And you want to lead with, there's a possibility and that eventually there'll be that little bit of an open door.
Right.
And that door, once it's open, then can lead to a place.
Yeah. Double down on that. I just think that coming into these, really thinking about the bigger picture in our interactions. Ultimately, what is it that we want here? Is it connection? Is it stronger relationships? Is it feelings of, empowerment, et cetera? I think these things are really, really important for us to connect to because, like you said, two people, if they're operating in different frames, it's going to be very hard to have a satisfactory outcome to a conflict. If I'm operating in a frame of like, I want to work through this because I'm really committed to the long-term success of us, and somebody else is operating in a frame of, I really want to win because what's most important to me is to be the winner. I see this all the time. I see these conversations don't have a high likelihood of success.
Right.
So I think it is important to think that through. I don't think there's one answer on that because those are hard conversations to have in and of itself. But
Yeah.
maybe that's the next podcast episode, Maryse.
You left me with a thought is if we lead with knowing that we all individually, we all want to be affirmed. We all want to be seen.
Yes, we do.
If that's a need of ours and that's a human need, let's lead with that.
I love that.
Right.
Great way to close. But we can't close yet because I need you to tell the audience where they can reach you, where they can find you, where they can learn more.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. So I have created with Kid Power International an online course, self-paced. Imagine you were to spend like a half hour a week for 4 months.
Okay.
You'd have the course completed. It's an 8-hour course, but it's self-paced and they're live sessions. There are 4 live sessions and the next fall cohort live session is August 27th at 5 p.m. Pacific. And so to reach and get to me, go to safetypowers.org/pathways.
Safetypowers.org/pathways. We will put that in the show notes.
And then go ahead and put my contact information with my email, phone number, whatever. I invite people, let's have a conversation, just like a discovery call, and hear what you have going and see how I might be able to help. I do that also. And then this might lead you to be able to end the year with these great skills, having practiced. There are role play videos, there's teaching videos, and imagine starting 2027 with a new set of skills. I'd love that for your audience.
Love that. Okay, great. We're going to put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for offering that up. And if you are listening and you are particularly interested in really digging in and learning how to resolve those conflicts in your life with much more ease and grace and confidence, that's where you want to be.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Claire, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, we'll talk real soon.
Great.
Wow, that was a lot of fun for me and a really enjoyable episode. I hope that that was helpful for you. As you all know by now, I'm fascinated with conflict patterns. And again, I hope that was really helpful because I know we all experience conflict in our lives, and getting better at conflict can make a massive positive difference. So by all means, my friends, please keep sending me your questions. You can send your question to support@clairelaughlin.com. I read every one of those and I will respond to those. Maybe even I'll create another Ask the Expert episode to address your questions. And hey, I've got a favor to ask. If you have an expert that you think would be a great guest on my show, reach out and let me know. Let me know why you think so and how I can reach them. You can send an email to support@clairelaughlin.com and we will take a look. Okay. So really appreciate that. Hey, maybe that expert is you. All right. Don't forget to follow this show on your favorite podcast platform. That's really helpful. And by all means, if you are enjoying this conflict, I hope that you will leave me a 5-star review. It helps more than you know. For now, I encourage you to think through and prepare for a conflict conversation that you might need to have. Remember the principles and keep those principles in mind that Maryse shared with us. Things like approaching conflict with an open heart and a generous interpretation and an open mind and staying focused on the outcome. Also, let me say that 5 minutes of preparation can take you in a really good direction. So don't hesitate to slow down and prepare a little bit. That's all for now, my friends. Until next week, lead the way.